All right, so we are having a joint meeting. So Dan, if you don't mind, if I open ours first, and then you can open yours. It is May 10th, Wednesday, May 10th, 2023, and it is 7:01 p.m. So we are opening tonight's Finance Committee meeting, joint meeting with the school committee. So I will take a roll call to show who is present. Kevin. Not see him yet. Okay. Paula.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Grace.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Joe. I saw you, Joe. I don't hear you, Joe. Joe. He's here. Okay. Bill.
Here.
Some technical issues. All right, work on that. Work on that. Paul.
Here.
Cody.
Here.
Zach.
Here.
And I am here. So that is 10 for us so far. Kevin may join us a bit late, I guess. Floor is yours, Mr. Sheedy.
All right, so I will call the school committee meeting to order. We'll call Mrs. Cohen,
Here.
Mr. Schleicher,
Here.
Mrs. Callina, Justine,
Mute.
Sorry. Here.
Rookie.
Mr. Savas.
Here.
Okay. Also joining us from the schools is Mrs. Hadfield, Dr. Bayetta, and Dr. O'Neill,
Thank you all.
and Mrs. Winsper.
Yes.
Okay.
And I see Mike and James. And not sure if anybody else is here representing the town, but that's all I see as of right now. So, to kick things off, since we are all here, we wanted to invite you all to have a joint meeting so that we could discuss what's been going on for a couple of weeks in terms of determining whether it made sense to use stabilization money in the amount of the shortfall, so that there was not as much of a hit to the general education funding, and so that, as it was explained to us, there would not be sort of the school department's unique in the sense that their school year starts after the new fiscal year, and so there's a lot of decisions that have to be made for the purposes of only spending what you have at the time. And so we were, trying to make the best decision for the school committee and just wanted the school committee's input. So that is why we are all here. So anyone that Dan, did you want to start off by saying anything as well?
No, I mean, I wasn't present at the last school committee meeting. I think there might have been some discussion on this. So I will likely defer to those who possibly have more knowledge than I do from those discussions. So I don't know if Joe or Dinesh or Dr. O'Neill, if you had something to bring to this.
Yeah, and I will say Dan knows this because I said it in my email, and Joe as well, that some folks from our committee had seen that meeting on recording, and some folks had not. So some of us had more information than others about opinions that the school committee held, and it wasn't unanimous on our board or in your board exactly what the opinion was of either board. So that is one of the reasons we're here too, is to just kind of lay all that out. So I'm happy to hear from anybody that would like to chime in.
So I'll chime in because I think this is probably, if it's not 100% about what I said, it's 99.9%. So I'll kind of recap what I said in the meeting, and I'll certainly try and clarify, because I think I'm hearing things secondhand and third hand. It sounds like people were like, feelings were hurt, or people were upset by my thoughts on it. So, listen, I think I started by saying 100%. I think moving the 700,000 is the right thing to do. It's the thing that a town should do.
Mhm.
I think that the way that you guys thought about doing it seems like a pretty creative, like thoughtful way to do it. My issue is not moving the 700,000. My issue is a broader issue. My issue is that for years, and those of you who have been on the FinCom for any period of time have heard me say this time and time and time again. My issue is that as a town, holistically, we do not run our budget process correctly, in my opinion. We do not prioritize things. We don't really discuss, okay, what matters most. We tend to take the view of, okay, we're going to split the pie kind of evenly across everything, and never really kind of say, what do the voters think is more important here? So my objection is not to the 700,000. It's not to moving it from stabilization. It's not that, it's not that we're backfilling it from free cash in the fall. My objection is that I don't want to be on a board that is saying, hey, in the fall, we'll pretend we don't have a huge budget hole. And we'll say, yep, we're good because we got that 700,000 that backfills the special education budget. 100% we need that money. And 100% in the fall, we are going to be in dire straits still. I mean, that's just the reality. To act like we're not, to put handcuffs on it and say, okay, we're going to give you the 700,000, but you got to promise not to come back in the fall, in my opinion, is a bad way to run a budget. It's disingenuous. I think it is misleading taxpayers. And I think it's just simply the wrong way to run it. Not in this instance, but in all instances. We cannot continue to run our budget that way. We have to start just determining, okay, listen, these are our priorities. I've thought a lot about this because this has kind of been dragging on here a little bit. And I'm like, wow, do I really feel this way? Do I not feel this way? And I absolutely do. And I kind of thought through like an ad absurdum type of example. If this was a different department, let's say it was the police, and the police said, okay, hey, we need a bunch of cruisers, and they're going to cost $500,000. And we said, okay, yep, we're going to give you the 500,000. We're going to move it from stabilization. We're going to give you the 500,000. In the fall, we're going to backfill it with free cash, but you can't come back in the fall. And over the summer, something happened, and they needed whatever, body armor, ammunition, some life-saving equipment that they have. I would absolutely not want them to say, oh, well, we can't come forward in the fall because we promised we wouldn't. I would be furious as a taxpayer that we were not being informed that the police department had a dire need like that. Why would we ever run our town like that? That doesn't make any sense at all. What I'm saying is, yep, 100%. I think the 700,000, brilliant, really smart move. Kudos to whoever came up with it. But to say, all right, in the fall, you have to pretend that you don't have needs, it doesn't make any sense. If in fact, you guys don't want to recommend the needs, or the town says we're not going to vote for those, I absolutely understand that. And the will of the taxpayer is what's most important here. But to not even present the information to you guys, to not present the information to the taxpayers, I feel like that's misleading. It's a disservice to the town. It's a disservice to the taxpayers. It's a disservice to all of us not to do that. So at the very least, I think we have to have the conversation. Okay, are we running our business? Are we running the business of the town in a smart manner, or are we kind of ducking and hiding and trying to pretend that we don't have the problems we do? And right now, I think it's the latter. I think we're trying to pretend we don't have the problems we do. The school budget, and Joe and Christine can talk a little bit more about this. The school budget is in a really, really dire place right now. This 700,000 is, let me be very clear, and Joe and Christine can correct me, is not going to help general education at all. It's only going to backfill 700,000 that we don't have for special education, which we are mandated to pay. We have to pay that. General education is going to stay at basically, I think, is going to stay at level funding, not level service. It's going to be at level funding. We're in trouble. We're going to be in trouble in the fall. Now, granted, we're going to make some hard decisions, and in the fall we may say, well, we made cuts, we did what we had to do, and it is what it is, and it doesn't really make any sense to ask for money right now. But I don't think we should ever run our business that way. We should never run our business where we say, okay, in the fall, if you have a need, I don't want you to tell us about it. Keep it to yourself, keep it secret. That is a disservice to every single taxpayer, every single citizen in this town, every single one of us on any of these boards. It makes no sense in my opinion at all. That was my only objection to this. It is not, I'm not upset about the 700. I'm not upset about not getting more or whatever. I don't like the idea that we're not going to move forward and admit our problems and prioritize and say, hey, in the fall, if we need whatever, if we come to you and say, hey, we're low on pencils, and the fire department comes and says, hey, we need a new truck, I don't know, hook and ladder truck, I don't know what the trucks are called. They're the priority, not us. 100%. We don't do that. We don't seem to do that at all. So, all right, I'll stop there because I'm starting to just repeat myself. But anyways, that was my thought. That was the gist of what I had said at that meeting. If it came across differently, that was not what I meant to say. But again, those of you who have been doing this for a while have heard me say this time and time again. This is nothing new. This is not something where I'm saying, I'm breaking new ground here. You guys have heard this a billion times from me.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Cody.
Through you, Dennis, I think one of the things that may have not made it through the communication wasn't necessarily that you're not going to come back and ask for anything. It's the prioritization of refunding the stabilization account and trying to get that back or increase it as much as we possibly can. Because if we decrease that stabilization fund, then we end up losing our credit rating or downgrading our credit rating. That impacts us even worse. And so the first priority was to reimburse the stabilization, get it back to where it was, then talk about increasing that to get closer to the 5% that we're trying to get to. And then we talk about the needs beyond that. So I think that was part of the thing that didn't get translated through. It's not necessarily that you don't get any more. It's just we're not going to recommend anything until that gets.
Right, Cody, I 100% agree with you. Refunding the stabilization is absolutely the priority. We cannot let that lie. I don't disagree at all. And in my scenario, that is priority number one. I agree with you 100% on that. And if that was misunderstood, no, I absolutely we have to fund that back up to where it needs to be. I agree with you 100%. And I think, I don't want to speak for them, but I believe every other school committee member probably feels the same way.
And then, Madam Chair, just one other thing. The other thing about it not benefiting general education, it does in that you don't have to pull an additional $700,000 from general education. So that again, I think we're all on the same page here. It sucks that we don't fund the way we should be funding. And, I will throw out the override discussion. I'll throw out the word. We need it to level set. And we need to talk about the people in the positions that can put that forth need to be having those discussions about level setting and getting us to that point, because we keep getting in a deeper and deeper hole. And it's a common theme that we keep coming back to. That's up to the school committee and select board and other governing bodies in the town to take that up and go forward with it. But I think we're all on the same page that it makes sense to pull from the stabilization. That was thanks to Zach for putting that up and recommending that. I think it's a great idea. It's exactly why stabilization is there. And exactly how it's supposed to be used whenever you have these, one-off unforeseen events, like the state jacking up the special ed costs and we don't have enough to cover it. So I think we're all on the same page there. The other thing I wanted to, there is no guarantee that we get the votes that we need to pull from stabilization at town meeting. So make sure you get your people out and all your neighbors. If this is the recommendation going forward, we've got to make sure that we have the people there that this gets passed and we can do this, because otherwise it puts us all back at square one on, you know, if we vote to go ahead and recommend that and change the recommendation at town meeting, we still need the numbers there to get it passed.
I just want to jump in. I appreciate this meeting, and there was definitely some misunderstanding on my part of kind of how things were, what you guys were thinking, and I too appreciate Zach with this out of the box kind of thinking to help fund our mandates. I think part of my frustration with this whole thing is we've worked for, I mean, I've been on the school committee for 7 years now, and since my entire time here, I've really tried hard to kind of bridge the town and the school department. So we were all kind of working together, pulling in the same direction, you know, and for a while it seemed as though we were, and some positive changes were happening. And I think my frustration is that when we have these mandates that we are required by law to fund, sometimes we are made to feel like our hand is always out. And that's the frustrating thing for me, because that's not the case. We're looking to have our mandates, you know, funded. You know, general ed, it is what it is. And we can talk about this till we're blue in the face with the override. But until we do level set, this is where we're at. And general ed kind of, it is what it is. We just keep funding the mandates because that's what we need to fund. But I think the last couple of years, we've just slid back a little bit with open communication between boards, and maybe because we haven't been doing joint meetings. I don't know, you know, changes in positions and whatever, but I think that it's sad to me to see the state that we're in collectively with our boards. And so I think part of my frustration was just feeling as though we were just looking to have our mandates funded, and then we're always just with our hand out, you know, looking for more. And that's not entirely true, you know, speaking for myself, and I would assume the majority of the school committee, if not all. So I just wanted to state, I do hope that, you know, we can continue to work together. I think that open communication is the only way to move this town forward. I've been saying that for 7 years. And I just hope that some of the sliding backwards that I've seen happening, and some of the stuff we've seen on social media, I hope that we can all start to move forward and do what's right by our town.
Thank you, Sherry.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Joe.
thank you. Good night, good evening, everyone, and welcome to my to one of my new bosses as well. I wanted to reflect on two things going forward in my now even shorter amount of time that I have as Jen and the committee take over. The first thing is that I think I know that we have taken out of stabilization in the time that I'd come here and made it a prioritize to backfill it. We did it a few years ago during the height of COVID. I believe it was around $400,000. Michael can correct me on this. And then it became a priority to actually make sure that funds were put back. We want to note that from the school department, there is about almost $700,000 coming back in healthcare savings for 2 months for the 260 or so employees on the school side that take that, and that should be available as free cash in the fall town meeting, and then the select board, Mike, and you folks will decide the best expenditure of that. I think there are two long-term goals that probably nobody better than 3 members of the committee, including one of our newest one, Nick, and Sherry and Dinesh and Dan have gone after is number one, Chapter 7 minimum aid has been at $30 since 2011. It's time to get our 2 representatives and our senators to stop playing this game. Why should a kid in a town near you get $1,270, but a kid in Norton only gets $30? It makes no sense, and it's very political, is what I've been told. I just met with the Mass Taxpayers Association, and there is no answer. I asked them for, can you please tell me why 12 years later it is still $30? Now it's just been moved to 60 this year. 1 year, I think we had 100. It should be at a minimum of what the average statewide is. We have districts that are getting over $2,000 per student. And it's because of the high needs population, which we are increasing every year, but we're still not getting our piece of that pie. So I would urge that we continue to ask our elected officials to file the bill when it comes in at 30 and be the ones that say, on behalf of the 119 districts in the state, we cannot continue to use $30 as the baseline. The second part would be one that that's very dear to the school committee. And again, lately has been a lot of talk, is when we're on pushing 25 years of school choice stuck at 5,000. At minimum, that should be an increase of whatever the increase is to the education budget. So if the education budget in the state goes up 2%, then that number should go up 2%, and allow for the calculation. You cannot continue to say that a parent who chooses to send their child to Norton because it's considered a better district, or because it's a better situation for the family, and so on and so forth, that 5,000 should be the number. It should be closer to the minimum net school spending for that community that's sending us the kid. For example, if they're coming from Attleboro and their minimum net school spending is 12,000, then maybe we're getting at least 7,500 of that from that town. In the same way that you would pay for the X number of kids who go to school choice in another community. So you're going to get hit a little bit with this formula. But with over 200 kids in school choice, between those two scenarios, you're talking approaching over $1 million of new money that the local taxpayer wouldn't have to have the burden on. And now all of a sudden, your school budget looks very, very, very different from where it has been during my tenure of trying to be creative, having FinCom willing to listen. So I think those are three areas to continue to push, and two of them are with our elected officials in order to even up the pie. And I'll leave you with that. And I urge you to put the second notes.
Thank you, Dr. Bannon.
I think Jen's dog has something to say.
She always has something to say.
This is a big meeting. I'm not sure we're gonna have time for her comments. Anyone else like to chime in from either committee?
I don't have anything further. I think Dinesh spoke eloquently about, we face these needs year over year. We do have the biggest budget in town. We realize that. It's not like we don't have anything in excess, and we don't have excess administrators or anything like that. But and as Sherry pointed out, we always look like our hand is out for more, and that's not the case. We are all taxpayers. We are all aware of the burdens that we all raise. So we've tried to not always look like we're coming back for more and more and more. We've tried to find our own funding sources with school choice and things like that. So, I do support, the movement of this money. I thank those who came up with this wonderful idea. Thinking outside the box is always something that we need to do more of collectively, not just these one-time, one-off scenarios.
Thanks, Dan. Well, I will chime in with my own perspective in that, Sherry, I wholeheartedly agree with you that communication between boards is extremely important. And I think things get lost in translation when we don't communicate directly. And that is really unfortunate because I think we have similar, if not the same goals. I would hope so. And, speaking for myself and my assessment of this board, our group, I don't think that in our view, the school has their hands out, but I know that that's feedback that you get from a lot of different directions. So I understand feeling defensive about that, given conversations you overhear or are told about or see on social media. So I know you also, all of you, I'm sure, appreciate the difficult position that we're in. We're not asked to make priorities, we're asked to put forth a budget. And so we try our best to be able to do that based on recommendations to us and also, basically based on recommendations to us and the opinions of the board. But none of us, as we've discussed, feel great about the fiscal situation that we're in and sort of the hand we're dealt and the way we have to make decisions in this town. It's a pie that's not big enough and very deserving, and there are a lot of needs that can't be prioritized in the way that they should be in this town, and we really, really struggle with that over the course of budget season and in the fall as well. So I just want to make sure that today everyone gets a chance to sort of speak on any other things that they wanted to communicate with school committee members or ask if you're on our board and vice versa. So I don't want to cut the conversation short. I certainly don't want to elongate it. Shane saw me at the track meet and asked me to keep this meeting short. So I'm trying to, do him.
Madam Chair, if I may, if you are willing, I am happy to send to you, or I can even share it right now, the screen, the actual information I just provided you on the cost increase per student by town and district. I can send it to you to forward to the rest of the group. It's an aha moment when you look at the numbers. And it's something, and I say this respectfully, I'm going to a place with high needs where they voted Monday night a $3.5 million increase to the school department. That's after giving the town $1.4 million because of a healthcare crunch. You'll just see how much each town is getting. It's an interesting piece of information, and you'll see the 119 districts getting the $60.
So, Joe, if I can ask you a question, you mentioned, discussing some of these needs with our elected officials at the higher levels. Do you know, have we had any discussions? Is there any love for getting this passed, or do we just have to keep calling them out and saying, you forget you work for us too as our elected officials?
Well, the state is currently, according to the Mass Taxpayers Association, the state is currently has $900 million of ESSA 3 money that it still hasn't used and doesn't know how it's going to use it. And it has the millionaire's tax that, regardless if you liked it or not, it's there. I'm not a big fan because I am a millionaire now. I'm paying an extra 4%. Just kidding. I know it hit the nets. So when I look at it, the money is there. The issue is the legislature is now in its 20th year of the one-party rule, where they don't really get to file a lot of bills and really have debate about those bills. And I believe the state auditor is going after that and getting a lot of pushback, because the problem is the money is there and the money has to be expended. And that doesn't include their state's rainy account, which is, as you guys know, is pretty significantly hefty right now and should stay hefty. The question becomes, if the SOA funds, and again, I'll compare communities, if the SOA funds, the Student Opportunity Act, are about the high needs, increased enrollment, high needs student population, then everybody should get a piece of the pie at a minimum average that needs to be higher than the now 12-year, $30 standing, which, by the way, used to be called something else, and then they moved it into the SOA. And I would suggest that Norton and potentially the school committee and the finance committee, but probably the select board, Mike, the superintendent and the school committee, and I can get you the names of all the towns and write to them and say, when are we going to have enough as 119 districts? Because it's the same 119 to 125 districts year after year after year. And say to them, this can't continue to happen. This is not sustainable for local communities, especially with a growing elderly community. It's not sustainable to do it this way. And again, it might be on deaf ears, unfortunately or fortunately. The representatives that you have, I think, do listen. They all responded to my request for $175. They all said it was a good idea. I don't know if they had any discussions with others about it. But the fact of the matter is, I think it's almost time for a group of people to get together and say, this has got to stop. There is a suburban group that is kind of dormant right now that used to meet all the time in our Lind here. That group was starting to pick up some steam because it was basically saying, why is all the money going to the urban districts and we're getting nothing? And that argument now with the SOA, I mean, you get cities getting 41, Worcester's getting $41 million of added SOA just for this year. Now, I know they got a lot of poverty and need, and I support it wholeheartedly, but do they really need to increase their budget by $41 million? Where are they going to find $41 million worth of staff in this economy? Just outright. So to answer the question, I think it's just time to organize in some way. And I'm sitting on the MASS legislative group. My move to Stoughton does not take me from there, and I will continue to make the fight that we're leaving 119 districts behind, and we should not be doing that.
Madam Chair.
Joe,
Oh, go ahead. I heard Cody and I heard Dan, so you two duke it out.
I just had
sorry,
a
Cody.
question for the school committee, Dr. Byetta, Dr. O'Neill, everyone that's in the know on all of these terms. I know they get thrown at us very quickly because you're experts in the field. I feel like I would certainly reach out to my representatives and make the request. I would just feel more comfortable doing that if I had some language that said, this is what you should ask for. And if we could get the people that know the language and know what needs to be asked for to craft some sort of template letter that could be used or modified, or, you know, something that it's a lot easier to get people to reach out to their representatives en masse if you give them something to talk from, or give them a template letter to say, email this to your representative, mail this to your representative, call your representative and say these things. Like, this is what you need to be asking for. It's a lot easier to get people to respond on that than saying, you need to know what the SOA is, and you need to know what Chapter 7 is, and school choice, and like, that's a lot to expect people to do. And if we can put all that together in a nice, neat form letter, I think we're going to get a lot better response if we can do that.
I'm happy to get the information, to draft some letters and leave them behind for you guys to tweak and change. I will tell you, fortunately or unfortunately, our two reps, two of them are both Republicans. They're less listened to right now in a Democratic House. But they work very well with Senator Feeney, even when they don't agree on things. And they do agree on education. Feeney's moving up the ladder almost every day in the State House. So all three of them work together very, very well. They are friendly with each other. They like each other. And I think that's a win-win. It's not coming from an R and a D fight. It's coming from how can we give more services to the communities that we represent. So I would urge that you consider what Cody's saying.
You can go.
Thank you. Dan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was on the same line of thinking as Cody, if we have some sort of templates, but I was also going to ask Joe, can you send me a list of those other communities that are in the same situation we are? So, you know, maybe it's a situation where we can start, you know, reaching out to some of these communities and getting on the same page and build a movement, I guess. Finding a way to try and do that.
Yeah, easy to do so. I have that list in alpha order. I just have to take the cut and paste.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other thoughts or comments? Kevin has arrived.
I guess my only comment would be, should we really start thinking of, if the taxpayers say no to moving from the stabilization, should we have that discussion in terms of what's emergency backup plan while everyone's here?
That'd be great.
And again, probably more of a doomsday scenario, I think, but it's a possibility that could happen.
Nick, I actually don't think that's a bad idea at all. The fact of the matter is, after we get to the 1.6 million of trying to keep as many people as possible and limit ourselves to things like the savings in my department, the savings in potentially not hiring not backfilling a retirement position if we can, any resignations that we are starting to receive and saying, do we need to backfill that? For example, we have one at the high school. Should we backfill that or wait until after July? After we get through that, the 707 is all people. That's 11.9 FTE. That's going to hurt.
Mhm.
And so and I do think again there will be funding. We've done this before. It was with less money, I understand, but I think at that point the administration has to provide you and the entire school committee priorities. There are awful discussions. You know, you don't have to bust 7 through 12. Oh my God, can you see 140 and 123 now? Increasing fees is not going to make up the money that you need. And we'd be going in the wrong direction with that. The only thing that could happen would be the potential that you're calling for a special town meeting in the summertime, which is never a good idea because there aren't enough people around. And you find out if there's, free cash already available and you go from there. Otherwise, you're just making the cuts.
Madam Chair.
Joe, do we,
Oh,
Go
I
ahead,
just heard Zach.
Go ahead, Dan.
well, I want to know, or do we have, what is our worst case scenario without this money? You said 11 positions, but I assume it's more than that without this potential money, correct? Because then we still need to find money to finance special education, right?
Yeah, so you're going to cut the 707 right out of general ed because you have to do the special ed and keep that number at 1.3, and you already get 666. So that's what you would do. You would literally take the 1.6 cuts and make it 2.3 million. That's what it would do. So there is no place for us to cut in special education right now. And to be quite honest, what we're hearing is that this is actually going to get worse, not better, based on the scenarios that are starting to play out. And it is what it is. Around the issues that we're seeing and the churn that we're seeing in special education as we saw this year. The second part that I think is important is remember that on the 15th of June, all employees begin to collect unemployment. So you're going to have at least some type of a bill that you're going to have to backfill in October for anybody who's still collecting or for replacing a negative line item that you potentially may have in the budget. So an example is it's 60 cents on the dollar. If you think about it, that's what you're covering. If in fact a teacher, a group of teachers, school employees, let's just say for the sake of argument, let's say you had $700,000 worth of employees up, you potentially from the last day that they start collecting all the way through the end of the fiscal year, which could happen, is you're looking at 60 cents on the dollar or $420,000 worth of unemployment. Now that's the doomsday number. But the fact is, you're going to have to come back and backfill unless you're cutting further into it right now, and in order to stabilize that. And I believe that the Mike, you can correct me, but I believe right now it's at 75,000 for unemployment or something like that, right? I think that's the number Mike and I talked about.
Madam Chair.
Sure, Cody. I just want to make sure, Zach, did you
Oh,
want
sorry,
to?
sorry.
Yeah, just a few comments. I don't see, first of all, I don't see a scenario where if the FinCom, the school committee, and the select board are united on this, that they're not going to vote for the moving of the stabilization. I could be dead wrong, and I hope I'm not. I don't think that's an issue. I think, but I think at some point, I mean, everybody, we got to be grown-ups and level with the town that this is the funding we need. If we don't get this funding, this is what you're going to expect, and let the town decide. If people want 100 kids in a classroom, and that's what they want, then
everybody's an adult. But you know, but they should be given those options and say, this is what's required. This is the money we have. If we don't get this X, put something on paper. This is what the result's going to be. And if that's what they want to do, then we'll respect that decision and say, you know, you're going to get 100 kids, whatever it may be. But I mean, not to have that discussion at all. I mean, what's going to happen next year? We're talking about, we got some money, you know, we got some money coming from healthcare. Okay, so we're going to use that for a budget. That's a big mistake in my view. Now you start next year with $1 million in the hole before you even have any increases. And it's just a snowball that just keeps going. So at some point, I just say, you know, the FinCom is not a non-political organization. We're not elected. We're just a bunch of volunteers here doing the best we can with what was given to us. But I just think for the elected folks, at some point, it's time to level with the residents in town and they can make a decision one way or another. I know it's a big thing, but everybody's a big boy and big girl.
Wow, I appreciate that coming from you, Zach. Cody, you want to chime in?
Yeah, same line of thought as Zach. I'm just, I like tangibles, and I feel like it comes across a lot better because it kind of sits out in this ethereal, oh, everything's going to get worse, class sizes are going to get bigger, you're going to have to lay these people off. Like, I just like to see dollars and cents, what it actually turns out to be. Like, you are, presumably you're already running through doomsday scenarios where you don't get this money and you're having to make the cuts. So you know 11.9 people, okay, you're having to cut 12 people out of your budget. Which 12 people are you looking at? How's that going to impact? You're going to pull it from the high school, from the middle school, from the upper L, like where the class size is going to be impacted, how many more kids are going to be pushed into a class, what kind of services are going to be cut, like painting that picture and saying, like, we're not just laying the groundwork for getting the approval for this budget, but looking forward, saying we're already starting $1 million in the hole for next year, or 1.3 or 1.6 or whatever it is. And it's only going to get worse because we're going to have increased mandates and we're going to have increased spending, and 2.5% is never going to catch back up because we're you know, those mandates are growing at a greater rate than we're able to collect in our taxes. So that's why if you have that, like the tangibles of what this actually means to this town, to the parents, you got to make it, you know, relatable to them. Because you throw numbers out and it's going to go right over everybody's head. But if you say, this means your transportation fees are going to go from $250 a kid or $500 a kid to $1,000 a kid, to $1,200 a kid. We're going to cut art. We're going to cut music. We're going to cut all the after school activities. We're like, what is actually on the cutting board? What does this mean for the average family that has a kid in the schools? And, you know, if we can paint that picture, then it makes it a lot more relatable because, you know, we've got finance people on the finance committee that we know numbers, we think about numbers, and we can see it that way. But most people aren't thinking about that. It's, you know, we need to put it out there and say, this is what it's going to mean to you. This is how it's going to impact you directly. And you can almost leave out the numbers piece of it and just say, your kid's one of 22 in a classroom right now, they're going to be one of 30. And there's not going to be an assistant in that class. It's going to be one teacher with 30 kids. And you're not going to get new technology. And if it breaks down, you're not going to get a replacement. All of your, all the ball fields and all that stuff, the maintenance, that takes a back seat. Anything breaks down, it goes to the back burner. We don't have the money to repair it. Just, you know, things start deteriorating. That's what I think is going to have a lot more of an impact here to the average people and make them get off their butts and show up to elections and show up to town meetings and make sure that we fix this going forward. That's my take.
So Cody, to just answer you, I'm in a very peculiar circumstance because as a appointed official under the ethics and state ethics law, I can't publish information that is an attempt to, quote, get out the vote. It's illegal for me to do that. Others can, but I can't. All I can paint is factual pieces of information based on X number of dollars aren't going to be available. And we've learned that because I'm not legally swayed. It's one of the only states in the nation, by the way. I'm not allowed to sway, people coming out to vote. I just have to provide the factual piece of information. I'm not supposed to send it to just parents because I'm using that as a political situation. I have to just simply have information at situations like our school committee meetings and all of that stuff, which we're going to have some general discussions about tomorrow at our regular scheduled meeting.
I don't want to be the Debbie Downer in the room, but I know myself and others that are here tonight, we have sat on committees, political campaigns that have been formed at least 3 times, I believe. We've done exactly that. Maybe the town demographics have changed where things would be different, but we've done everything right. We've had all the facts. We've stated that, and it just in this town, it just hasn't worked. We always say we keep kicking it down the road, and eventually people are going to have to listen to what we're saying. But, unfortunately people move on, they leave positions. It is what it is. But, I just want to clarify, I know Cody, I don't know if you're new to town, but, I personally have been on 3 committees, Bonnie and I and Sandy have spearheaded, 3 override attempts, you guys? I don't even remember at this point because I tried to block it all out. It's a grind. It is a real grind to do this.
And as we've said about town meeting, it really depends on who shows up on Monday night to determine, whether or not there needs to be a doomsday scenario. That's our legislative body in town. So they're the will of the voters at town meeting. The people that are in the room, they're the only ones that get to decide what happens Monday night. And we can talk until we're blue in the face with all the facts, as Dr. Bayetta alluded to, and have all our ducks in a row and all these meetings that we've had. And if the people in the room decide that they care more about how it impacts them than the town at large, then that is what we live with. And the same is true at the ballot box when it comes to anything to do with this town, whether it's elected officials or it's a measure like an override. So we are living the result of 2 failed override attempts. We did have debt exclusion success, but we've had 2 failed override attempts in 2016 and 2017. The second loss worse than the first. So we told everybody all the things, and who showed up to vote is who showed up to vote. It's very unfortunate that we try to communicate this. And as I've said, the Finance Committee knows, we say every year in our report that goes into the town report, the FinCom report always talks about how without an override, we cannot level fund and in many cases provide level services because of the fiscal situation that we're in. And the only way to do that would be through an override. And we use that word every time.
It would be really nice if potentially, instead of a couple hundred people, there was anywhere near the percent that we need to hear the whole town. We only hear special interests.
Mm-hmm.
We hear what people who earlier we said, let's get all these people in that we see on our common ground to vote. But I'd really love to have the whole town to hear everybody. We all have different needs. We all have different services. And we need to address all of those. And I think that's what we're doing here today. I think there's a good budget in front of us that's addressing all of those needs. Unfortunately, it's not unlimited.
Yeah. And we did also, as some in this room know, we did attempt to, or some folks did attempt to make recommendations to change the legislative body. And there was not an appetite for that either in terms of who showed up to vote. So this is where we are.
But the townspeople spoke. This is what we have.
This is
where we are, and this is what we have to deal with.
Exactly.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Zach.
I think we're going down the road of political discussions. It's probably we're skirting the line here. But I would like to say, I think in regards to the overrides, I don't think, why they failed and why it would be difficult to get another one through is because we've managed to get by. Some way, somehow, you have a good school system. Some way, somehow, you have a good police department. Some way, somehow, you got an excellent fire department. So all the doom and gloom that we've given the people has never panned out. So they're very skeptical. You say, how many times have we heard this? And guess what? You have excellent schools in town. You have excellent services in town. And it's being done on a shoestring budget. There's no question about that. So until, and I said to some people privately, until there's some pain felt, nothing, that will never change. So that's why I think I keep saying level with people. This is the money you got. This is the best you can do. This is the best we can do for our community. And if that's not good enough, then that'll change. Until that point, until there's some pain felt, nothing's going to change it. And there hasn't been. To this point, I've been here 20 years. The schools are good. I have my son there. I'm very happy with what's going on in Norton Public Schools. I'm very happy with the town services. Just my soapbox.
Zach, I think, I agree with what you're saying, and we've said that for a while, that people don't feel the pain, so they just keep thinking we'll figure out a way. And I think part of the problem for that, for me personally, sitting in this seat on school committee, it's very difficult for me to sit here and not try to give our kids the best, because that affects our children, right? And when I say our children, I don't mean just ours, I mean our community's children. And I personally couldn't sit here and let that happen. So we had to figure out a way. We were extremely lucky with having Joe as our superintendent, and, he thinks outside the box. He comes up with other ideas. He's creative of how to make things work for us. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and, listen, at the end of the day, my youngest is going to be a senior next year. So, but it scares me sitting in this seat. I don't like to see our students have to suffer to prove a point to townspeople. I just wish that townspeople would listen to the people who spend countless hours in meetings trying to figure this out for our community. Everybody on social media, they know everything about everything, but yet they're never in any of our meetings or at our meetings. I just wish that people would start to listen to the people who have spent years and hours in meetings trying to figure this out.
With that said, as we talk about, our taxpayers aren't unlimited resources either. So that's why they all adapt and figure out what they need, what they can afford. And that's basically, we're all in the same boat. I wish we did have unlimited resources, but we don't.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Cody.
If we're, I don't want to belabor it anymore, but I also, if everyone's kind of done, is there a point where we reconsider the recommendation on the budget for the article on adding in the 700,000 or it's 707, right?
Yes.
707,000 from stabilization funds. At what point do we move that?
We would do that after we've ended this joint meeting. There's no need for the school committee to hang around for that. We still have collective bargaining agreement discussions to have too, so that's when we would do it. But yeah, that's always something we can do, is any article that we've already made a decision on, we can reconsider. So, and then I'll just have to explain it. You're welcome, everyone.
Just a reminder to the school committee, if they're leaving, they need to close their portion of the joint meeting as well, for the record.
Yes, I wasn't pushing you all out. I was just acknowledging when that would
No,
take.
it's the world according to Bonnie. We see how it is.
Only here for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's any other questions for, the school committee or any of our representation, obviously if something comes up, you can feel free to reach out. But I would be okay with closing the school committee portion, and you guys can go along with your regularly scheduled programming.
Yes, I have a comment. I lived in this town for 37 years, and Bonnie and Troy, remember, I was with you for the 2016-27 override campaign that failed, and people maybe like me and be respectful of the town officials that work hard to get their budget. And hopefully if people were like me, then we would be in a better place. But I love living in Norton, and it's a good school community town to live in, and we need to think of the townspeople and not others.
Thank you, Peter. All right. Thank you so much to all of you from the school committee and school department that joined us tonight. Welcome, Justine, by the way. I did not welcome you in the beginning. Sorry about that. Yeah, we'll see you on Monday. And we appreciate the direct communication.
With that, I would entertain a motion to close the school committee meeting.
So moved.
Okay, roll call vote, Mr. Sabas,
Yes.
Mrs. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Schleicher,
Yes.
Mrs. Callanan.
Yes.
Mr. Sheedy is also a yes. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you all very much.
Great. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good.
All right. We are back to our regularly scheduled programming. And so we, based on that discussion, just want to make sure there aren't any comments that this board would like to have without the school committee present. Obviously they can watch it, but that would needed to be limited to this group before we vote to reconsider.
Do we have to close out our joint meeting officially and then reopen as an individual meeting or not?
I don't believe so. We opened a meeting, so I believe the meeting is open. We just posted that we were having a meeting, and here we are, so I think it's fine.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach.
I just want to reiterate what I've said probably a dozen times already, that, putting that money back on stabilization in the fall is a top priority. And hopefully the town manager has been quiet over there, agrees with me.
I think he might. I won't speak for him.
I agree.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody?
Just, to put a finer point on that, Zach, obviously that's first priority is getting that, what we put in now, if we recommend it and get it passed, replenishing that. And then, I know we had talked about trying to increase that stabilization fund to get it closer to the 5%. We have no idea what's going to come to us in the fall and what budget's going to be, like what the requests are going to be. So we can't necessarily say we're going to take as much as we can and stick it into stabilization, because we could end up with another situation that's unforeseen. Obviously everybody wants to get that stabilization up, but I just wanted to make sure that we're, if something hits the fan and we've got to pull from the free cash at that point, we got to do what we got to do.
Thanks, Cody.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach?
so what is the process here? We've already passed the 2% school budget. Is it an amendment? Do we reconsider it, or do we just see it's gonna come out of stabilization?
So
Is
my
that a separate
understanding,
vote here?
yeah, my understanding is that we vote to reconsider, which if we vote in the affirmative means that we are going to reconsider Article, is it 12?
7.
Which is, I come up with 12. 7, and then if the vote is in the affirmative and is the majority, then we reopen discussion, if there is any, and then we would revote Article 7, and Mike would help me or Paula with the language of what we would need to say, and then we would vote again And then that vote would be the recommendation of the Finance Committee. It will not match what is on the warrant, which is not our favorite thing in the world, certainly not mine. And so then I will need to explain it, and you know, the wording that I recommend will be different than what's in the warrant.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill.
I recommend we reconsider Article 7 of the town meeting.
Second.
Is that Sandy? Thank you, Sandy. I hear a motion and a second to reconsider Article 7. I'll take a roll call vote. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Trace,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
and Zach.
Yes.
And I too am a yes. That's 11. Okay, so discussion is open for Article 7, the budget.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill.
would it be a discussion, or would I just recommend the change? And then we discuss.
Oh, well, I think either is possible. I think we're
Okay.
probably further enough along in the conversation that we could just make the recommendation. I just want to make sure we get the wording right. So Mike, if you have thoughts about that.
Want me to? So the motion would be, so you voted to reconsider, and then your motion now would be that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $66,333,154 raised from water receipts, the amount of $529,826, from sewer receipts, $164,947, and the amount of $2,230,259 be transferred from the following funds for a total appropriation for the fiscal year 2024 operating budget of $69,965,686. And the funds are from the Hicks Fund, $200,000. From stabilization, $707,500. From ambulance receipts, $850,000. From septic betterments, $35,000. From the dog fund, $10,000. Debt exclusion premium, $11,218. Wetlands protection, $5,000. And from free cash, $1,119,041. So the total transfers are $2,937,759.
Could you read that one more time? 2,000,000.
$937,759.
That
Did
is.
I miss the money coming from stabilization someplace, or?
Yeah, you mentioned $707,500.
All right, I must have missed it while he was reading the Constitution.
The Bill of Rights. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill.
can I just say so moved? Because that was painful.
That was painful. I could read it aloud when I make the recommendation, if we want to do it that way. Okay. So we have a
I'll second that.
motion, and Joe just seconded. So the vote is to recommend that the town raise and appropriate $66,333,154. From water receipts, $529,826. From sewer receipts, $164,947. Transfers from the following funds: the Hicks Fund, $200,000, stabilization, $707,500, ambulance receipts, $850,000, septic betterments, $35,000, the dog fund, $10,000, debt exclusion premium, $11,218, water or wetlands protection, $5,000, and free cash, $1,119,041, for a total of $69,965,686. How about that? A little bit of practice before Monday night.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach.
just a process issue here. To pass the budget, you need a simple majority, correct? And you need 2/3 to move that money from stabilization. So is that gonna be packaged all together?
So in order to approve this budget, you will need a 2/3 vote.
Okay. And if it were to fail, then what happens? You have a plan B?
I guess, well, your plan B would be to go back to what you had previously.
Okay,
Which would be what's in the warrant, right?
Right.
All right. Are we ready for a roll call vote? Okay. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
No,
Trace,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach,
yes.
and I too am a yes. So this 10 and 1.
All right. Thank you. Next, just to give you an update on Article 12, the Water and Sewer Commission last night did vote to waive the connection fees for the town hall and the senior center. And they said they hope the article doesn't move forward.
So they recommended no action.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach?
I think that's the deal we made with them when they were here, so I would move to reconsider that article. I'm not sure what number it is.
I second.
12.
12.
Move to reconsider Article 12.
All right. I hear
A
a motion
second.
and a second from Paula to reconsider Article 12. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
yes,
Trace,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
and I too am a yes. That is 11. So,
Madam Chair,
yes, Joe.
my preference, I don't know how anybody else feels, would not be to recommend no action, but to actually recommend the article and vote no.
Anyone else? Weigh in on that discussion.
Joe, can you just give your rationale for that?
Sure, I still don't like the wording of this article. I still think it gives them carte blanche to not pay fees for whatever based on some interpretation down the road. I don't think we should change the bylaw, especially now that the fees have been waived by water sewer which was the intent. There's no need for this bylaw, so I feel like we should vote it down.
Madam Chair?
Paula, just 1 second. I
Sorry.
just want to clarify with Mike. Is this Article 12 the special?
Annual.
Gotcha. Okay. Go ahead, Paula.
Sorry, so if we vote no action, though, the article won't be moved at town meeting. Therefore, the bylaw won't be put in place unless someone from the floor, I guess, moves it. And then I believe the FinCom most likely would speak up to explain the situation. So I don't know
why we would have to vote no, why that would be a better option.
Madam
to Make
Chair.
sure this bylaw didn't get passed.
Cody?
I get the sense that somebody may try and move it from the floor, and I'd rather us have a decision and a recommendation as to why, what our rationale is, instead of having to debate it and whether or not it's needed. That's, so I'm in with Joe. I think I hate the way it's written right now, because it's got undefined terms and it's open to interpretation, and fees could be interpreted to say we're not going to pay our usage fees, and that's not the intent.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I voted no the first time, and I would, if we choose to, move this article, I would vote no again, based on the language.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill?
what am I trying to say here? I recommend we vote Article 12.
So you're making a motion for us to recommend Article 12?
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you, Joe. Just want to making sure I understand you correctly, Bill.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's been a long time since you chaired, which was like 2 weeks ago. No, just kidding. I have a motion and a second to recommend Article 12 as written in the warrant. Kevin,
No.
Paula,
No.
Steve,
No.
Trace,
No.
Sandy,
No.
Joe,
No.
Bill,
No.
Paul,
No,
Cody,
No.
Zach,
No.
and I too am a no. That's 11-0 to 11. Not recommended.
All right. And the last article is Article 4. And this is for collective bargaining agreements. And we have now settled with AFSCME Clerical, AFSCME Highway, AFSCME Water and Sewer, the International Association of Firefighters, the Norton Police Association, and CNAB. And so the recommendation is to transfer $206,893 free cash, $10,810 from water enterprise receipts, and $1,922 from sewer enterprise receipts in order to fund those 6 contracts.
So you said 206,893 from free cash, 10,810, 1,922, and what is the total?
So the total is
Quick math. I should get my kid in here. He's good at stuff like this.
I'm looking for that sheet I have with the total. So the total is, I can tell you that in a second.
$219,625. Is that right?
Do you want me to double check you?
Yes.
All right.
He's right.
Oh, thanks, James. It's the first time I think I've ever heard you say that in all the time we've known each other. All right, so any discussion of Article 4 from the annual?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Paul?
Mike, is that all the contracts settled, or you still have some pending?
We have 2 more that won't be settled before, obviously, town meeting. Just superior officers in the police department and CNA A.
And who does CNA A impact?
Say that again, Bonnie.
Who does CNA A impact?
CNA A is all the department heads.
That's what I thought. Yep.
And Mike, what does that leave free cash at?
Free cash will be at $63,458.
Any discussion? Article 4.
Madam Chair,
Sure, Cody, go ahead.
just wondering, do you anticipate that that'll be enough to cover CINA A and what was it, the department heads?
CINA A is the department heads and superior officers. No, those won't be approved now until the October town meeting, so they're funded there.
Thank you.
And Mike, this is one of the things, can you discuss any significant changes from the previous contracts to these for the next, what is this, for three years?
Yep, I can. So in most of the contracts, the percentage increase is 2.5%. Except in fire, it was 2%. But in fire, there's a night differential of 3%, but they also agreed to exit civil service next July 1. And then other than the 2.5%, most of them are pretty standard as far as longevity increase of $150. And what we've also put into 3 of the AFSCME contracts is we're having trouble obviously finding people now, and the harder thing is even finding people with licenses that we need. So we've started paying for people's training, and all 3 contracts, they've put the provision in there that if they leave 2 years or sooner, they pay back 80%, 3 years or sooner, 60%, 4 years or sooner, 40%, 5 years, 20%. After 5 years, they don't have to pay anything back. And just also AFSCME clerical, the lowest step on the existing contracts was eliminated. Just the lowest step was $19.67. And also in water and sewer, they had a low step of $16.80. So in water and sewer, the meter readers, we eliminated 2 steps, $16.80 and $17.44, $16.80 and $17.44, which are way below what we're gonna need to attract anyone to those positions. So.
Mike, what's the term of these agreements?
They're all 3 years.
All 3 years, effective 7/1, starting this year, or?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's in the article. Any other questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve or recommend Article 4.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paula.
I make a motion to recommend Article 4 of this annual town meeting, collective bargaining agreements, to take $206,893 from free cash, $10,810 from water receipts, $1,922 from sewer receipts to fund the new contracts.
For a total amount of?
Total amount of $219,625.
Thank you, Paula. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. And now we'll take the roll call vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Trace?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And I too am a yes. That is 11.
All right,
Do
thank
you have
you.
any hidden gems for us, Mike?
Well, the only thing is, do you want me to post a meeting for the night? Hopefully, you don't need it, but just in case, post a meeting for
Mm,
the night of town meeting. It's up to you.
mm.
Mike, are you expecting any surprises or?
I'm not.
Has that been common practice
Well, yes, at one time.
post the meeting?
Unfortunately, it used to be, I think we all decided we hate meetings on the night of town meeting, but a lot of times we'd have issues that we had to address that at the last minute.
Yeah, sometimes it was contracts or something like that, like we couldn't. Sometimes it was like the planning board had to vote on something before, and we didn't feel comfortable voting on it until they did, and they weren't having a meeting until right before town meeting. So things have happened, but we really have gotten away from that, and we already have enough. For example, what we talked about tonight, that is not going to be in the warrant, so that is my opinion, but I am one of 11.
And Monday is town meeting, so I'm expecting everyone to be there.
All right, thanks, Peter. See you there.
I'll be there. The mayor will be there.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach.
is there any other business for this session of the FinCom?
This meeting tonight?
No, for this not election cycle, but this budget cycle.
Not that I'm aware of.
What about the annual letter? Is that, you're just gonna post that?
Yes, we did send it in, and it was due Monday.
Okay.
So Paula did work on that over the weekend, and we finalized it.
That's normally something that we present to the committee and vote on it as a committee. Is that required, or is it just a best practice that we were following?
That would be your practice.
I do apologize then that we did not do that. We can make it available to the entire committee, and we had to have it to go into the packets. We had to have it in by Monday, and I did not realize that that was something that should have been brought before the committee. So I do apologize for that.
No, understood. Just talking transparency. Understood, though.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
it.
But I will, Paula, I'm sure will be happy to share it as well. So, we can do that. I will say that, the only other thing that I just want to give everyone a heads up about is that we typically have a meeting a couple weeks into July so that we can vote on anything that needs to be encumbered. Am I using that word correctly?
Any year-end transfers?
Year-end transfers, fine. It's not as cool as encumbering, but whatever. And so, yeah, any bills that come in after the first for the previous, for fiscal year 23, correct? So, be on a lookout for that. I don't know that we picked a date. Did we?
No, not.
Okay. I know that we probably can't gather the entire board because of vacations and things like that, but just ask that you check your email, your town email periodically, especially sort of end of June, beginning of July, so that, or I guess middle of June, so that we can put that date together and ensure that we will have a quorum, because it would be mighty disappointing to get some of us together and not have a quorum to be able to make those transfers. So is there any more business to come before this board tonight? I will see some of you. Certainly Paula and I will be there on Monday night at 7 p.m. at the high school, but I invite all of you to be there to partake in the wonderful civic duty that is town meeting.
Peter will be there.
And Peter will be there too. All right, well, if there is no more business, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:24 p.m.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paula.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Cody. That is a second. I will just note that Kevin arrived at 7:30, just because I don't believe that was said out loud. But it was in the chat, and I appreciate you letting me know, Cody and Kevin. Okay, I'll take the roll call vote to adjourn. Kevin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Trace,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
and I too am a yes. That's 11. Thank you, everybody.
Right?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Go Sox.
Go Sox.